Okay, let's look at an opposite type situation here. Let's look at a bond that is issued at a premium. In other words, it's not 95.5, which is 0.955. In this case, you're issuing it over 100. Keep in mind, if we're issuing this at par value, it would be issued at 100. Exactly. That would mean you got $200,000 for this piece of paper that says, hey, I'll sell you this piece of paper, give me $200,000, I'll pay you 8% interest for 20 years, interest paid annually. Okay. Notice that in this specific problem, it doesn't tell you when interest is paid. Part of the reason it doesn't tell you that is it's not really relevant to the problem. The questions they're asking you are not really relevant to that. So, I mean, what you're saying is if it doesn't say, just assume it pays once a year interest. A lot of your problems, though, are going to be twice a year, like July 1st and January 1st, that kind of stuff. But anyway, back to our problem. We issued 200,000, so we sell this piece of paper, and you notice that we got more than 100%. We got more than 100%. We got 101. Okay, so that means we're selling this at a premium. That means they're not going to give us, because interest rates out there in the real world are lower than 8%, and our piece of paper gives them 8%. We're able to sell this for more than 200,000. In this case, 1.01 more. So when you get this kind of problem, go ahead and lay out 200,000 and multiply it by 1.01. Okay, that's the easiest way to do it. So multiply this, I hate that color, by this. Keep in mind, if the issue, like in the previous problem I covered, if it was issued at 95.5, you would put instead here 0.955, below 100%. But we're over 100%, so it's 1.01. You'll also notice that it's basically the exact same thing. This number is really 101.0. So when you move to the left twice, 1, 2, you get 1.01. Our previous problem was 95.5. So you went 1, 2, and you got 0.955. Again, you're moving to the left 2 times. So we multiply this out. We have 200,000, and we're multiplying that by 1.01. That gives us 202. And that answers our first question. Hey, how much are we getting for this piece of paper? We're getting 202. Now, how much cash in total will town pay the bondholders through the maturity date of the bonds? Well, let's talk about cash and how much cash you're actually paying here. This is how much you got. So you gave them that piece of paper, and they gave you $202,000. You're issuing, bonds here. But the question is how much you're going to have to, in exchange for that money, how much you're going to have to pay them back, this holder of this piece of paper. Well, one thing for sure you're going to have to give them from this sheet of paper here is you got to give them that 200,000 back. So let's get that out in the open. You got to pay that. Okay? And again, looking at the piece of paper here, it gives you clues as to what else you pay out. Well, you're going to pay 8%. Remember, every time you see percent, think per year. You're going to pay 8% per year. So if you take 200,000 and multiply it by 0.08, notice we're taking 8%. We're going to the left twice, 1, 2. That makes it easier to work with our calculator. Get rid of that now. 200,000 times 0.08 is 16,000. That's per year. But the question is how many years? And we've got 20 years. From 14 to 34 is 20 years. So we're going to pay $16,000 20 times. Okay, so we're going to pay $16,000 times 20 years. In other words, we're going to do this 20 times. Remember, all interest rates are expressed in years. So we're going to take 16,000 and we're going to do that 20 times. That's $320,000. Okay, throw a quick sum in here. It's $520,000. We're going to have to pay the face what's sitting on this piece of paper. We're going to have to pay that, and we're going to have to pay interest of $320,000, which is the 200,000 right here. The 200,000 times 0.08, right? And that is $16,000. And then you just sum the 320,000 times the 200,000 for 520,000. So in total, we're going to be out that much. Now, I mean, this is pretty easy here. It says take the difference between how much you're going to pay in total, everything included, principal, returning back the face value here, plus interest, which is equals 520,000. And what you're actually going to get in pocket, remember you got a premium on this, you got 1.01, you got 101, so you got this much, you're going to pay this much. Well, of course the difference is going to be, your interest, the interest expense over the life of the bond. If you're able to get this and you have to pay this out, well, the difference has to be interest. Look at it this way. If these two numbers are identical, you paid no interest. You gave them back their money, what they gave you. So we'll take 520 minus 202, and we get 318. Okay, compute Town Bank's annual interest expense by the straight line method. Well, here we're asking ourselves, how much is interest? How much is actual annual interest? Not interest payment. We know what the interest payment is going to be. The interest payment is 200,000 times 0.08. But it's not asking you for interest payment. It's asking you for the interest expense, what the true interest expense is. Well, right off the bat, we know, let's slide down here a little bit. Right off the bat, we know we're going to pay 200,000 times 0.08. 200,000, and we're going to pay 0.08. That's per year. And we calculated it up here as 16,000. Okay, so we're going to pay this per year. And we know that's our interest payment, not our interest expense. But we also know that when we issued this, we issued it at over 100%. We issued it at 0.01 more. So the easiest way to do this is take 200,000 and multiply it by 0.01. That's the excess over 100. It's not 100, it's 101. It's not 1.00, it's 1.01. So come over here and take 0.01, and you're going to multiply that by 200,000. And that's going to give you $2,000. Now this 2,000 is over the life of the bond. Over the life of the bond for 20 years, right? So you're going to pay this over the life of the bond. The reason you know that is you issued the bond, and it was 200,000 at 101. So that's for the entire life of it. You paid 0.01 more. In other words, you were paid 0.01 more. You were not paid 200,000. You were paid more than 200,000. So over the life of the bond, you got the advantage of $2,000 more. That's the whole deal behind the 2,000 right here. You didn't get 200, you got 202,000. That 2,000, when we're talking about the straight line method, that has to be allocated, right? That has to be allocated over the life of the bond. Here you have 20 years. You have 14 to 34 is 20 years. So you take this 2,000 and divide it by 20. Each year, your effective interest rate is a little bit lower because you got more than 200,000. You got 202,000. So let's take the 2,000 and divide it by 20 years evenly. That's the whole deal with straight line. That's what straight line means. We just take it straight across 20, right? And that gives us $100 a year. Okay, and that's $100 per year. So your effective interest rate is not $16,000 per year. It's lower than that. It's lower by $100 per year. Per year, and this is per year. You take the 16,000 minus the 100 and you get 15,900. You'll notice that your effective interest rate, your true annual interest expense, is not truly the 200,000 times the 0.8. If you come over here, this is what it would be. This is what your true actual interest expense would be, but only if you had issued at par, if you had issued at 100%. But since you issued it at over par by 0.01, 0.01 times 200,000, there's the 2,000. That 2,000 is what's amortized or worked off over the life of the bonds, which is 20 years. Hence, this is what we would have paid if we'd issued at par. This is how much lower it is because of the fact that we got 2,000 extra dollars, and they're allocated over 20 years. Okay, multiply the annual interest expense by 20. So we're taking 15,900 times 20, and we get our magical answer, 318,000, which just happens to match the difference between the 202 bond issuance. So this is how much money you got when you gave them the piece of paper, and this is how much you're going to pay over the life of the bond. Yes, I guess it is, because we're wonderful. Okay. This is an example of issuing at more, right? This is issuing at, you were able to yield more money than what's on the face of the document. You didn't get 200,000, you got more than 200,000, and it tells you how much more. So this is an example of issuing at a premium. Keep in mind that this, in terms of when you're amortizing or working off that balance, instead of working off a debit balance, you're working off a credit balance in this case. Let's look at, I want to show you something before we take off on this problem. Okay, what I wanted to show you, just so we kind of keep everything rigged up the same way as before, is I wanted to show you the entry when you receive this 202,000. So you're going to get 202,000, that's more than the 200,000, and this is the entry you'd make. You're going to record $202,000 worth of cash, because that's how much you got in your pocket. You're lucky because since interest rates are lower and your piece of paper is more valuable, you only owe 200,000, which is what's on your sheet of paper. Use this as an anchor point. Your bonds payable entry is what it always goes back to what your bond statement issuance says. It's not monkeying around with this. You pay the interest that the interest document says, the bond says, and you pay the bond payable, it says. What adjusts the interest is the fact that you get more or less cash. And then here you notice the difference. Notice that the premium on bond issuance this time is a credit. Okay? When we were working with it as a discount, it was sitting over here as a debit. I didn't want to show you that just so you could kind of see what the entry looks like. I hope you found this useful.